YouTube, what it do? Rifle Thompson, back with another video, and this is All Facts TV. Thank you guys for all the support. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the views. All that. I appreciate you guys. And right now we're gonna talk about the Houston Rockets and basically my take on this small ball lineup. And one, is it good for the NBA? Two, is it sustainable? Is it a sustainable model? And three, will it win the Houston Rockets a championship? So let's tackle one, the first part. Is it good for the NBA? The short answer is yes, I believe it is. I believe it's good for the NBA because it actually embraces maximizing your personnel and maximizing your star power, your star players, regardless of what the traditional norms are. The reason why I say that is because Russell Westbrook is a driver. He's a slasher. He's not a really good three-point shooter. That is not his strength. His strength is attacking from the mid-range and attacking the paint. Now, with Clint Capella on the court, the thing is that Clint Capella, now you basically have two guys who can't shoot. So now you have more opportunities to help off. You have more guys to help off on defense that can clog up the paint and make the lanes, the driving angles difficult for Russell Westbrook. So it was basically I cater to you and I believe in you trade, in the sense that you now remove that off the court, and now you have more shooters, more space, more driving angles for Russell Westbrook at face value, without teams making any specific adjustments to just guard that aspect. Also, what that also did is that allowed James Harden to rest and not expend as much energy and not have to be the focal point of the offense, when you can give Russell Westbrook that ability. And Russell Westbrook, because of where he scores from, he's going to be a much more efficient scorer, and he's also a great rebounder and passer and passer out of shots. So he's going to get guys open opportunities, and he's going to be able to start the transition because he's great at rebounding. So if you notice, when he was playing in OKC, he was stealing the ball from Steven Adams, who's a great rebounder himself. So I don't really see the rebounding aspect being that much of a factor. Rebounding really comes down to positioning and just who wants it. Yes, height is going to help a lot in that area, but if a guy wants it and he knows how to position himself, and granted he's a great leaper, he's going to be able to get off the floor quick. And that's why a guy like Charles Barkley, who was a great second jumper, he was able to out jump guys that were significantly taller than him, because Charles Barkley was 6'4", 6'5", ladies and gentlemen, playing in the day and age where there were true 7-footers all over the court who were really just specialized big men in rebounding and defense for the most part. So, but I kind of take the small ball lineup, going back to, is it good for the NBA? I take the small ball lineup back to two areas. One is video gaming. So in 2K, NBA 2K, if you play the game, you know that isolation is, the preferred way of teams playing. The reason that is because, a lot of big men in the game aren't scoring big men in the sense that they have a post move or they can create their own shot, just like in real life. Like a lot of big men aren't. They don't have the ability to score when they want to create their own shot, unless they're like, and then even then they have to be given the ball by the point guard because they're not a primary ball handler. So what you see a lot of the times in NBA 2K, with randoms in the rec, you see guys that just clog up the paint, that just run into the paint. I gotta grab rebounds. I'm a big man. I'm supposed to be in the paint. I gotta grab rebounds. But the problem is that they're a glass cleaner, right, on your team, or he's a rebounder, rim protector, whatever he is, right. He's one of those bills, right. His defender is the same thing. So they're basically playing into each other's strengths of clogging up the paint and causing madness. And that is why, in that game specifically, why you have a lot of people who either just have to that just shoot the ball from outside. They can't even drive, so they don't know how to create their own shot because they're really not even given the opportunity to the majority of the times that they play. And it's like they have to force tough passes in the inside because you have a lot of people looking for easy scoring opportunities in the sense of driving to the hole opposed to shooting the ball. And that's just a whole nother discussion as why that happens because, shooting in 2K for a lot of people is difficult. But sticking with that analogy, right? So they basically took the least efficient or the least dynamic paint clogger off the court and off their team and said that we're going to cater to Russell Westbrook's ability to finish, be efficient, set up other players, and rebound. We're going to make you the center of our offense. Again, this allows James Harden to rest on offense, rest during the season, and not expend as much energy. And I think he should, I don't know, but he should be able to be more efficient in the playoffs because he doesn't have to exert himself so much during the regular season since this trade has happened. And we have seen that. I mean, he hasn't been shooting the ball well, but he hasn't also had the same usage rates as he's had in years past since the trade because they're giving Russell Westbrook the ball and they're saying, we know you're a more efficient scorer, so we're going to have you basically attack the defense. And once you attack the defense, you can kick the ball out and shoot the three. Not only that, but when he's out of the game or even when he's in the game, because they have guys that are all just naturally spacing the floor and are shooters, what they can do is that they can just swing the ball around and use ball movement to get guys open and shoot threes. So it's really a win-win, and it's kind of like what I say in the NFL that doesn't happen a lot, and that is when coaches don't cater the system to the players that they have. They want the players to cater their games to the system that the coaches want to implement. And what Mike D'Antoni basically did, for lack of better words, even though Carmelo Anthony would disagree, is he's catering to Russell Westbrook, and he's also catering to James Harden and the strengths and the weaknesses of their game by getting rid of Clint Capella and fully embracing this small ball lineup. So back to the other point is the reason why it doesn't work. So, no, let's not even go there. Let's just talk about what can the big man do. So we're talking about the evolution, or is it good for the NBA? So like a big man that can post up and is dominant in the paint, that is a separate conversation because now you can run the offense through him essentially, at least in the half court situation where a lot of teams struggle. Even in 2K, people don't know this, but if you have a really good post player in 2K with the same floor spacing that you would have in the ISO situation, I'm talking about in the rec, you can have success. Actually, if big men were better passers in that game, the floor spacing issue wouldn't be that bad. Granted, you don't have people just running around the court the whole time, but that's a whole nother video. But in real life in the NBA, you don't have that many dominant big men. You have a lot of big men who are still, they're really athletic, but they're only specialized in maybe catching lobs or getting rebounds or blocking shots. And you don't have a lot of the guys, Joel Embiid You don't have Nurkic. You don't have Jokic. You don't have Vujic from the Magic. Excuse me if I butchered his name. You don't have a lot of guys that are different in their approach, or even Aiton and Phoenix. You don't have a lot of big men that are bucket getters, so to say. So, and Blake Griffin and Anthony Davis, can't forget those guys. So, they basically said, we're not going to keep staying with the status quo of the NBA. We have to have a big man, even though he kills our offense and kills what we want to do against competent teams. Because, like I said, with Russell Westbrook and Clint Capella on the same team, you have two guys who essentially can't shoot, or teams, or one guy that can't shoot and another guy that you would prefer him to shoot. So they just simplified it and said, hey, we're just going to make Russell Westbrook the scorer. Now, the thing was before Russell Westbrook got there, the reason why it worked was because James Harden would kind of like attack the paint from an angle, right? So it's kind of like in 2K, going back to the 2K. What I like for teams to do is, if you're going to have a big man who's efficient at catching lobs, or efficient finisher, what you can do is you can have him on either the strong side or the weak side, but you need to have those two guys on the opposite side of the court, right? And you want the guard to attack the ball or attack the rim at an angle and force the big man to help. So you can do that by having your center standing outside of the paint by the hash mark area. So now that when that big man rotates over, he's right in position to catch that lob. You know what I'm saying? So I'll probably make some more videos about 2K strategy. You know what I'm saying? But those are things that they could do, and that's what they did in Houston, and it worked. But because James Harden was the only guy that can create his own shot consistently on that team, it tired him out, and he couldn't play defense, or he wouldn't play defense. And that's why when it came to the playoffs, his efficiency went way down, right? So I think that's an interesting take, and I think in the playoffs moving forward, I want to see how the rest that James Harden is getting during the regular season after the trade, how it's going to be able to preserve him going into the playoffs. Because I think that was really, basketball, it's a lot of things. People say, is a guy clutch, yada, yada, yada. But a lot of times, at the end of the day, conditioning is going to make or break you. And if you don't have the proper conditioning, you're not going to be able to perform. And I don't think that James Harden has had the proper conditioning to be a two-way player, and be that takeover player in the playoffs, because of the way that he has to score. He has to dribble a lot. He has to exert a lot of energy. He's not like LeBron James in his prime, who could just first step around somebody and dunk over you. You know what I'm saying? He had to be a little bit more finesse. He had to use more energy and know how to use angles, and that takes a lot. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. So that is my take on that aspect. Moving on to, will this small ball lineup help the Rockets win a championship? It's still early to call, because it's going to be interesting to see how a team like the Lakers are going to use their length to stop Russell Westbrook. One of the ways they could do this, and how teams back in 2K play, is that they press the ball handler, right? And then they have a big man sitting in the middle of the court, because or your best defender sitting in the middle of the court, because now he can play the passing lanes, and he can basically play as a safety and stop long passes and things of that nature, or cross court passes, or in the paint passes. He can stop all of those things. So, and that's similar to how teams are playing Giannis. They're playing Giannis with a dedicated defender in the middle of the court, and they're making it difficult for him to have easy driving opportunities, because that guy is going to going to help on him immediately, or not help on him, but it's going to defend him immediately once they get the rebound, and then he's going to go, he's going to sag off in the half court and stand in the paint and make it so that he has to make plays for someone else. So, but the thing is with the Rockets, they have two dynamic ball handlers and shot creators, essentially. And so, if it doesn't work with Russell Westbrook, in theory, you should be able to work with James Harden, because James Harden, now you can't press up on him or you can't sag off, because he's great at driving, and he's great at or he's good at shooting the three ball. So, and with the step back. So I think that the Rockets are in a very good position. I think the Jeff Green, I'm about to say Jared Green, Jeff Green and Damari Curl signings were pretty underrated, because it gives them more of what it gives them more depth at what they want to play, right? So one of the things that I was concerned about watching Houston is that if PJ Tucker, who was before Robert Covington, before we saw that Robert Covington was going to kind of be like their center too as well, it was like, if PJ Tucker got injured, who are you going to have that kind of plays his position? With Damari Curl and Jeff Green, you essentially have guys on the wing who can also defend the paint, and they have foot speed to be able to switch and rotate. And that was another thing, and I think that was the biggest thing that made Clint Capella expendable, and why their defense, as good as a defender he was, why their defense, from an analytical standpoint, didn't show that they were that good when he was on the court, because teams want to switch, because it keeps the pressure. In theory, it keeps the pressure on the ball handler, and it's supposed to limit the angles that the ball handler has to create or drive to the hole, right? But with Clint Capella, when he switched, now teams are just going to say, we're going to isolate him and just get around him with just pure speed. And now you have to have another defender help off who isn't a shot blocker or something like that. Now they're giving up a three, right? So even though Clint Capella is a elite shot blocker, in that system he wasn't the right fit. But now that you have Robert Covington on the court, he can switch. You have PJ Tucker, he can switch. You have Eric Gordon and Damari Curl, Jeff Green, many others guys that can switch, and they have great speed, and they can play the passing lanes and really cause havoc on the defensive end for the opposite team. It's kind of like what Baylor is doing in the college game, where they're switching everything. The difference is that Baylor is basically switching, but they're also having the defender shade the ball handler to the baseline at all costs. They don't allow any penetration to the middle of the court, because that, again, that's like back to my 2K thing, and back to why it didn't work. It's like when you have a lot of bodies in the middle of the lane, you basically make the game very difficult for you to maneuver, because now the passing lanes are not there, because you have a defender in the middle of the paint, right? So yes, a team could defend the Houston Rockets in that manner, but when you have that dedicated big man who's always going to the middle of the paint, there's always going to be a defender there, regardless of the set or regardless of the look that you're giving them. And so that's why that is a big issue. Will the Rockets win a championship? Again, it's too early to call, because I think teams like the Clippers have the speed and have the personnel to actually play a small ball lineup with and against the Rockets, and may be more efficient if in terms of their scoring, because Houston does have, and Mike D'Antoni is a enabler of this. They do have the tendency to get obsessed and fall in love with the three ball to the detriment, even when they're not shooting, even when they're not shooting at a good clip. So I think the Clippers, they could play a small ball, but the Lakers, it's funny because we were saying last year the problem with the Lakers were they didn't have any shooters. Well, this year they really didn't get any shooters for LeBron outside of Danny Green. They have Kyle Kuzma, but Kyle Kuzma was there. What I think happened with the Lakers is that they got more dynamic on offense with having another guy that can create his own bucket consistently and efficiently, and Anthony Davis. And their defense, because they had more length, because they got Dwight Howard, they brought back JaVale, and now you have Danny Green out there, and you have LeBron playing the point guard position. You now have more length in the passing lanes. Although you can make the case that Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, and LeBron was the same thing. It's just for what they do, you have proven guys that are in those positions, not guys that are developing into those type of players for the future. But I think it's going to be really telling because, like I said, LeBron, if you are watched during the season, sometimes it's difficult for him to get to the hole. And again, it's because when they don't play small ball lineup, you have bigs clogging up the paint. Then when they do play small ball lineup, LeBron, because he's older and he has such a high usage, and he's really the only creator on the court. Although Anthony Davis can get a bucket for himself, he has to be set up in a sense. He exerts so much energy that he can't really be that defender that gets back on defense, nor can he be that rebounder that really decreases the effects of not having that big man on the court. So it'll be interesting to see, could a team like the Lakers beat Houston. Lastly, I would say the Milwaukee Bucks will be very difficult for Houston to beat, and Philly would be if they didn't have the same problem that Houston just got rid of, with that being two guys on the court. Well, Embiid is a shooter, but Ben Simmons, he just refused to shoot for whatever reason, unless he's playing coy and in the playoffs he's going to turn into JJ Redick. He just refused to shoot, and he's basically clogging up the paint. And I think it'll be interesting to see, will D'Antoni ever look, or coach similar, will they ever look to making Ben Simmons the 5 on the team and then having all shooters around him? Because that's a different dynamic than having Russell Westbrook, who's 6'3", 6'4", being your best rebounder. Now you have Ben Simmons, your best rebounder. He's 6'11", 6'10". You know what I'm saying? And then you have all shooters around him, and then you can have taller guys that can roam the paint. Or could you imagine him like Ben Simmons on a team like the Timberwolves? You know what I'm saying? That would be really, really dynamic if they had like all shooters, because Karl Anthony Towns has been shooting the ball at an excellent clip. D'Angelo Russell has been shooting at an excellent clip, and they could get a guy like Devin Booker or something like that. But even if they didn't, because I don't think that will happen, like contractually, the salaries would be crazy. But if they can get a guy like Ben Simmons like that, that would be crazy. But and on the inverse, if Embiid was by himself and was able to be the postman and didn't have anybody else in the paint, that would be like Dwight Howard back in what was that 2010 against his playoff run, his championship run to the to the finals. It would be similar to that, where you basically make him the center of your offense, no pun intended, and then you have all shooters around him. So the Houston Rockets should be a very dangerous team to say the least, but there are other teams. You have the Utah Jazz, who kind of have a small ball lineup they can go to, and then you still have Rudy Gobert. You have teams like the Denver Nuggets, which they will have problems with because you have a guy Jokic that can do it all. You know what I'm saying? He can shoot the three. He's an extremely good passer, which is extremely underrated as a big man. If you're a big man that can pass, you open up so many more opportunities offensively for your teammates and for yourself. And then they have length as well, and they have shooters on Denver. So I see them as another team that could give them problems. And then I was gonna say, Damian Lillard, he's put James Harden out before, so he's gonna always feel confident going up against them if he can make if the Rockets, not the Rockets, if the Blazers can make the playoffs. But that's my views on the small ball lineup. I think it was a great move by D'Antoni. It showed that he trusts his players and that he buys into what their strengths and weaknesses are, and he wants to maximize their strengths while decreasing their weaknesses. And overall, I think it makes, for what they want to do, it makes their team a lot better because now they have more guys that can switch on the perimeter and stay in front of these dynamic guards and dynamic small forwards that are all over the league. Also, it gives them more three-point opportunities, better floor spacing, and it allows Russell Westbrook to be unleashed and gives James Harden the ability to just rest and chill and not have to exert so much energy on the offensive end, which should pay dividends come the playoffs. So I'm happy to see this, and I'm looking forward to it. Let me know what your viewpoints on this and what you think about this in the comments below. I appreciate you guys. Comment, like, and subscribe. And I'm getting out of here. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting out of here. And you can read this article on Fanside if you want to see some in-depth analytics. But I ain't gonna just regurgitate that. I just wanted to have something up here. But I appreciate y'all. Y'all be easy, man. I'm out of here.